Hi, Power Kids. It's Miss Donna coming to you here from sunny North Carolina to share this week's story with you. And before we do, I wanted to just tell you how happy I am to be here with you and how much I've missed seeing you all in person. Well, our story for today comes from God's true word, the Bible, and it is a good one. I know they're all good ones, and this is certainly one that you will enjoy and that I enjoy, and we have a lot to learn from. Before we look at that, though, let's talk about what our memory verse is for this month. This month we are talking about faith, and faith is actually trusting in what you can't see because of what you can see. And that kind of takes us along the same line as our memory verse, which is in the book of Hebrews, towards the end of your New Testament, Hebrews 11, chapter 11, verse 1. Faith is being sure of what we hope for. It is being sure of what we do not see. I have to tell you that I know for a fact that there is air in this room because I'm breathing and I'm still alive. I can't see that air, but I know that it's here. Now, if I were to look out the window at the ocean, I could see the air because I can see it blowing the waves. So that's kind of what faith is. We don't see everything, but we know that it's there. That's what our life with Jesus is, and that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today. Our story for today is actually from the book of Acts, and Acts is one of the books in the New Testament, and we're in the chapter 9, starting in verse 1, and we're going to be talking about a man named Saul. Now, Saul was a very well-educated and smart man. You see, Saul was an Israelite. He was one of God's special people. And he grew up from the time he was little learning about God. He was even sent to a special school to learn under a special rabbi, Rabbi Gamaliel, who was a very well-known and famous teacher in those days. And Saul learned all about God, all about the Bible, and he had what he thought was great faith. Well, now let's fast forward a little bit as Saul has grown up, and a man named Jesus has come on the scene. And Jesus has said that he was God's son. He performed miracles. And remember that a lot of the religious leaders weren't too happy about that. They weren't sure what to do with Jesus. They didn't believe the things that he was saying. And Saul was one of those leaders. In fact, Saul had kind of made it his mission to get rid of these people who called themselves Jesus followers. Well, it is on that particular story that we're taking place today. So Saul has just heard of Jesus being killed. They think that everything is over. He's been crucified. He was supposedly buried. Of course, the body was gone. His disciples said he was still alive. And some people were even saying they saw this risen Lord. They saw him alive. So Saul had to do everything he could to stop this because he didn't believe what they were saying. So he actually was part of, and this is a sad part, but he was part of one of the young believers of Jesus being stoned to death. Last month, we heard about a young man named Stephen who did love Jesus, who was actually stoned to death, and that was one of our stories. And Saul was there when this happened. He actually stood there and watched as it happened and held the cloaks of the people who were picking up the stones. Well, he continued along that line, going against people who loved Jesus, who were Jesus followers. And we heard in today's story in Acts 9 that Saul had heard there were a great number of believers in Damascus. Well, now Damascus was a city that was in Bible times, and there were a lot of people who loved Jesus who were meeting there. So Saul decided, I've got to do something about this. He went to the high priest at the time, a man named Caiaphas, and he said, send me some letters that you approve of me going into Damascus and arresting all these people who say that they believe in Jesus. So he went and he picked up some official letters, and he was going to pack them up and he was going to take them to Damascus, and he was going to arrest all those people who said they believed in this Jesus, Son of God. He packed them up, he took some men with him, and off they went on their journey. After several days of traveling, they were getting close to Damascus when all of a sudden something very strange happened. A bright light shone into Saul's face, and him. He fell to the ground and he couldn't see anything. And the people who were traveling with Saul, they couldn't see anything either, but they could hear a voice. And Saul heard the voice. And this is what the voice said from Acts chapter 9, starting in verse 3. As Saul neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and heard a voice say to him, "Saul, Saul, why are you opposing me?" "Who are you?" asked Saul. Guess who it was, boys and girls? It was Jesus. "I am Jesus, who you are opposing. Now, get up and go into the city, and I will tell you what you should do from there." Well, Saul couldn't believe it. As he stood up, he could not see anything. The other men who were traveling with him had to take him by hand and gently lead him into the city of Damascus. Once he got into the city of Damascus, for 3 days, he stayed with a man named Judas on Straight Street in Damascus. He didn't eat or drink anything. He just waited to find out what was going to happen. Was he going to hear from this Jesus again? And instead of being so full of anger and hatred towards the Jesus followers, Saul's heart had changed. Now he wanted to be one of these Jesus followers. He wanted to teach people about this Jesus that he had met out there on the road to Damascus. Because you see, boys and girls, Jesus had changed Saul. Saul had discovered what our bottom line is for today. Knowing Jesus changes the way you see everything. After 3 days, Jesus did speak to Saul again through another man and told Saul that he was going to become a man that would lead others to learn about Jesus, lead others to find Jesus and become a follower. In fact, Saul, whose name would change to Paul, would go on to write many letters that would end up being part of the Bible that we have today. In fact, many of us have read and studied God's word given to us through Paul, all because he went on Damascus Road and he saw Jesus. And after seeing Jesus, everything in his life changed. And it's the same for us, boys and girls. When we truly see and understand Jesus, it will change us. It will give us faith to share what we know, what we have seen about Jesus with the other people in our lives. It will change the way we see everything. Thank you for listening, boys and girls. I will see you soon. Take care. Know that I am praying for you.